So in this segment, we're going to be talking about how the sort of rising tensions in Northern Ireland are a threat to the Western Alliance. So I read through this article. It's good in some places. It's not great in other areas, which we'll kind of talk about as we get there. But overall, it is true that Northern Ireland, sort of the rising tensions in Northern Ireland, are a threat to the Western Alliance. The Americans are very much involved in Ireland and Northern Ireland. The EU have very much invested in Ireland and also Northern Ireland. No one wants to see a return for troubles, except from maybe, ironically, the so-called Conservative and Unionist Party, but that one's up for interpretation. I don't think anyone wants to see a return for troubles, not really. Maybe some hardline Unionists, want to see a hard border go up back in Ireland, but those people are insane and a very small minority. So going into the actual article, so it goes, a simple analysis about the unfolding crisis in Northern Ireland has established itself as settled wisdom among almost all informed observers across Europe. The United States and even Britain, it's all London's fault, which is true. It is true, this is on London. Let's not forget here that originally all of GB was meant to be in the single market and customs union until a solution was come up with regarding the border within the island of Ireland. Technology was a so-called solution, but which countries actually patrol their borders just via technology? None. So it's a joke. So it is all on London. Let's not get it twisted now. Who voted for Brexit? The British, or sorry, not the British, but mainly the English and the Welsh, mainly just the English really. So this is all on London. The type of Brexit that we picked, that was on Westminster. The story is convincing because it's true. It was Britain that voted for Brexit. That's true, despite warnings about the threat it posed to peace in Northern Ireland. Okay. Britain that imposed Brexit on Northern Ireland, even though the people voted to remain in the European Union. Britain has chose the hardest possible version of Brexit. Not the hardest possible version, a no deal would be the hardest version. One that it knew would be most disruptive for Northern Ireland. And finally, Britain that signed a treaty with the EU that is now threatening to partially revoke over issues in Northern Ireland. All of these charges are true, so no lies here detected, for the most part. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Prime Minister for now, is publicly committed to unilaterally abandoning core parts of the 2019 Brexit deal he signed unless he can negotiate significant changes. And we'll be talking about those changes later on. The UK have gotten rid of their red line regarding the European Court of Justice, insisting that the move is necessary because the practical impact of the agreement is undermining the fragile social, economic and political consensus in Northern Ireland established by the Good Friday Agreement. Now, it is doing some damage to that, but that's mainly just unionists who are having problems with it. For the most part, it seems like there is a slim majority of support for the Northern Ireland Protocol and view it as a good thing. And as Britain has to start, Great Britain has to start doing import checks next year of EU goods, I think the favourability of the Northern Ireland Protocol will go up even more. And yet, even if Brexit and that specific form of Brexit that Britain has pursued since 2016, that's not actually true, we haven't pursued it since 2016, lies at the root of this crisis, which is true. I mean, okay, whatever. It does not necessarily follow that London is wrong about the current threat to stability in Northern Ireland, or that it is wrong to try and combat this threat. And you do that through negotiations and consensus. Šefčovič has given up a lot here in terms of negotiations and concessions in order to help alleviate the problems within Northern Ireland in terms of supply chain issues. He has also spoken specifically to businesses to the point where business leaders have said, yes, Šefčovič is offering exactly what we want in terms of support. So, this argument here is not the best. They're saying, it does not necessarily follow that London is wrong about the current threat to stability. They might argue that it's a threat. It's not that much of a threat. And let's not forget here, you can solve these issues mostly through consensus and negotiations. It can be true both Johnson is an untrustworthy and irresponsible leader who has made the situation worse. I mean, no, he has made this situation we have right now. And that the deal he signed and negotiated, which he claimed was great and won an election to ratify, really does threaten the very peace settlement in Northern Ireland that it was meant to protect. So maybe those people in Northern Ireland, those unionists, should look at, why is it that sort of group of countries we want to be a part of has forsaken us. What is more, if this is the case, the EU must share some responsibility. Now, why must the EU share responsibility for this? This was the UK's proposal. This is what it came up with. The UK were more. Should have been more than prepared for this situation. And let's not forget here, it's not the EU's responsibility to govern Northern Ireland. It's not. It's GB's responsibility to govern Northern Ireland. So this argument this person is making is very stupid and very frustrating. For the deal was made as much in Europe as in Britain. No, the deal was made as much in Britain more than it was in Europe. Frost and Johnson came up with this idea and pitched it. This was the only way they saw to get around the impasse, and it was a part of the withdrawal agreement, and it was built partially on trust, which the UK hasn't actually implemented the things we were meant to implement to make the protocol work. So it seems to be you're missing these bits in your article, Mr. Toogan. The worsening rhetoric between Britain and the EU. So, this is venom being spewed on one side here. It's mainly from Britain. The EU haven't really threatened much. They've said there may be some sanctions and they may withdraw parts of the TCA depending on what Britain does if we start trying to invoke Article 16, etc., and revoking parts of the protocol. But, trying to argue here that it's the EU's fault in this one, again, it's not true. It's setting the two on a course to a permanently hostile relationship. Again, it's one side that's causing this hostile relationship. The US will inevitably be dragged into this mess. Well, as guarantors of the Good Friday Agreement, I would expect so the US would be dragged into this mess. That's not a shocker, my friend. The crisis, in other words, risks metastasizing into an ongoing geopolitical challenge among historic Western allies in which everyone loses, which is true, everyone does lose, but it's up to Britain to resolve this. We're the ones constantly complaining about the Northern Ireland Protocol and coming up with crappy solutions like the command paper. So if we really wanted to solve these issues, we would work with the EU. We would get we would try to get an equivalency agreement, or we would get an agreement similar to the one Switzerland has. Again, that word escapes me. Dynamic alignment is what we would get. So when the EU changes its rules, we change ours, therefore allowing more goods to be able to flow freely from GB to NI. So again, these people. At the heart of the problem is Northern Ireland's unique politics, which only functions based on a carefully constructed balance of power between its British Unionist and Irish nationalist communities, in which both sides must give their consent to any major changes. Okay, fine. The former favours staying part of the United Kingdom, the Unionists, of course, while the latter wants to secede and, have a united Ireland, which remains an EU member state. The lesson of Northern Irish history, again, this is something I would struggle to comment on because I am a million miles away from having any expertise on Northern Irish history, but he's saying is that power is either shared between these two communities or imposed on them in one form or another by the UK, leading to instability and unrest, which is true. It is the UK who had imposed, who had colonised Ireland originally, and then we kind of, continued to colonise Ireland with the creation of Northern Ireland. So he's not wrong here. The lesson is it's either imposed or it can be done by consensus, which the Good Friday Agreement was done on, a consensus between the Unionists and the Republicans, Irish Republicans. For the exhausted onlooker, the obvious question is, why is this an issue again? Well, it's fairly obvious. It's down to a certain Mr. Iceman. In 2019, after 3 years of crisis following the referendum, again, who voted for that referendum? The UK and the EU finally got agreed on a divorce package. A central part of the deal was something called the Northern Ireland Protocol, the thing that we're currently discussing, which on its face was supposed to protect the peace settlement that had held since the Good Friday Agreement. The peace agreement now more than 20 years old, kept Northern Ireland in the UK, but established power sharing between its Unionists and nationalist communities. So I think it led to the creation of Stormont, paving the way for the Irish Republican Army to give up its war against the British state, which in turn allowed the British state to remove most of its military from Northern Ireland. So the Good Friday Agreement, a good thing. The protocol ensured that even though Northern Ireland would leave the EU with the rest of the United Kingdom, there would be no need to return to any kind of hard border, because goods can go freely from NI to Ireland with no issues. No need for a border or a hard border, which nationalists feared would disrupt their ability to move and trade freely across the frontier. The problem is that the protocol did this by moving the border between Northern Ireland and the rest of GB really, or I should say GB instead, which to many unionists disrupts their ability to trade easily within their own country. I mean, again, that's their problem. Like, if they're mad about it, they have to take that up with the British government, not with the EU. The EU did not impose this. It was the British government that effectively imposed this, if you want to argue that. So to try and blame the EU is ludicrous. To Johnson's critics, this is an inevitable consequence of Britain's own policies. Which is true. Again, don't try and make this out as, some people are saying this and some people are saying that. No, this is what Boris Johnson wanted. If he wanted to resolve the issues, we would go for a dynamic alignment agreement. But if we did that, we wouldn't be able to get trade deals with countries like Australia, which we're already struggling to get. First, to leave the EU single market and customs union, which Boris Johnson apparently didn't know what a customs union was, rather than pursue a soft Brexit, and second, to promise that no border infrastructure would be erected anywhere on the island between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. He also promised that there would be no checks in the Irish Sea. I don't know why you didn't mention that. Because Brexit necessarily means borders where there once were none, this meant the only place to put that was in the Irish Sea. In this telling, the latest crisis over Northern Ireland is just an example of Johnson's cakeism, in which he tries to have it always, avoiding the consequence of the choices he has made. And there is much truth in this, which is true. Again, you're saying it is Boris Johnson's fault, but you're also trying to say it's not really his fault. Like, we can say that, oh yeah, Johnson's a liar and a charlatan, but the Northern Ireland Protocol is causing problems, and that's partially the EU's fault. Like, it's really not. Close inspection of what Johnson is actually asking for, however, reveals something less radical. He's seeking not to reopen the fundamental question of where the new border is placed. I mean, he kind of is. He's trying to get rid of it for the most part, and to reduce the scale of the impact to make it palatable to unionists. Again, who cares? Who cares? It's not, if they're so annoyed about it, they should take that up with the British government. The specific ways in which he proposes doing this may be unreasonable or go too far. I mean, it's not maybe unreasonable. He's threatening to suspend parts of an agreement that was only signed about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. So, again, like, it may be unreasonable. Like, no, it's absolutely unreasonable, and he's part of the thing that's causing the problems, because he keeps setting deadlines about Article 16 and suspending the protocol. That gets fed back to the DUP, who then feed that to these radical unionists, who then start causing problems because the red lines have been crossed. So let's not pretend, it may be unreasonable of Boris Johnson. Like, no, it's absolutely unreasonable. This guy, or go too far in the minds of his opponents, but they are not significant. They are not as significant as preposition as they first might appear. Johnson is threatening not to suspend the Brexit agreement if he doesn't get his way. He is. That's what he wants to use Article 16 for, because he's going to have to prove that there were significant economic, societal, or environmental difficulties, or a diversion of trade. The diversion of trade thing might not be that difficult to prove, but let's not forget here, if the EU don't buy it, they can stick tariffs on. So, he's trying to say, what Boris Johnson isn't doing anything unreasonable. He's going to use Article 16. The problem is in the way he's going to use it. It's wrong. These people, man. The British government argues that this bar has clearly been met. Well, do it then. Just do it. Make your dreams come true.
Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
Northern Ireland's unionist representatives have all opposed the deal to assuage their concerns. The British government has sought to limit the border's practical impact, unilaterally extending grace periods for businesses and the like, something initially opposed by the EU. I mean, they didn't necessarily oppose extending grace periods. It's because it was unilateral. There, look, you've written it down, mate. You've written it down. Unilateral. If they were against extending the grace periods, they wouldn't have done so in June into September, would they have, pal? So-called journalist. Today, unionist parties, one half of Northern Ireland's delicate political balance, all rejected the protocol, and not all the unionist parties did. The less radical ones didn't. So again, my guy, what are you doing here? All rejected the protocol, even in its half-administered form. According to prominent figures within the Northern Irish Unionism, whom I spoke with, unless significant changes can be agreed in the next few weeks, Powersharing is likely to collapse. Well, it's been a few weeks. It's been potentially about a month. Nothing has happened. Because they're not going to collapse Stormont. Why would you collapse the thing that gives you power? It doesn't make sense. The last time they did that, They didn't get anywhere. If anything, it made things worse for them because they lost the only power they had in the area. So, bruv, like, let's be real, man. This is not analysis. Like you said, basic analysis. That's what this is at best. You're talking C grade level uni work here. Within unionism, if the protocol is not significantly amended, the main unionist party, the Desperate Unionist Party, believes it would have no choice but to leave government or risk losing support to a rival, and a much more hardline unionist party that proposes the Good Friday Agreement, that opposes the Good Friday Agreement. Potentially true, but how much support is that party actually going to get? You know, Sinn Féin are the party that are on the rise at the moment, so this more radical unionist party won't get that much traction in the election. That would almost guarantee that the largest nationalist party, Sinn Féin, for so long the political wing of the IRA, would win elections for the first time in Northern Ireland's history, which tells you the kind of mood of people in Northern Ireland. That maybe they're not such strong unionists after all, the majority of people anyways. Such a strong result would further destabilise and radicalise unionism, making the resurrection of power sharing even harder, which is true. I mean, it might result to people going, you know, using more violent methods, but it might be just people just accepting the simple fact that unionism isn't that popular anymore, and that if they want to be a part of Great Britain, they have to move to Great Britain and can't do that in Northern Ireland. Would be in a perpetual cycle, says Doug Beattie, the leader of the UUP, which negotiated the Good Friday Agreement, and which has historically been the most moderate of Northern Ireland's Unionist Party. He told the journalist, everything we've gained could be lost in the blink of an eye because of the Prime Minister who's in charge of the Conservative and Unionist Party. In one sense, why would anyone outside of Britain or Ireland care about political breakdown of this nature? I mean, because no one wants to see Northern Ireland descend in violence, not people in Great Britain, not people within the EU, not the Americans, and especially not the Irish specifically. Northern Ireland is about the size of Connecticut, but with half the population and nowhere near the wealth. I mean, again, I get why he's making these kind of arguments, but it's a bit dumb. There's no given natural resources, a proper American viewpoint that would be. In almost every way, it is irrelevant to the core interests of Europe's great powers. I mean, if there was a country in Europe that was in the middle of, that became a war zone, I would be very concerned. You know, Britain, you know, Western powers are very concerned about the situation in Ukraine. So again, like the point he's making here is like he's trying to explain why Northern Ireland is important, but trying to make these points here, it don't make sense. And yet the integral political dynamics of this small bit of the UK now threaten to grow into the most serious long-term political crisis within the Western Alliance, which is true. This could break down into a massive crisis, but that's only if Britain lets it get like that. Both the UK and EU have known this, but ignored the warnings. I mean, that's... So why are the EU offering massive changes to the Northern Ireland Protocol if they ignore the warnings? Why? Because these guys that, from what I've read, the ones that burnt down the buses have said, oh, it's gone past the deadline the DUP set for triggering Article 16 and getting rid of the Northern Ireland Protocol. So again, the arguments this gentleman is making is unreal how bad they are. Believing that whatever deal they thrashed out could be imposed on Northern Ireland without the consent of both sides of the political sectarian divide. But you won't get consent. It's very hard to get consent from both sides on anything regarding the Union or, you know, the Republic of Ireland. It'd be very difficult. You know, they barely came together to sign the Good Friday Agreement, so you're never going to get bold political consensus for the Northern Ireland Protocol. No way. But if that's what the majority of people in Northern Ireland, if they're happy with it, then you have to accept it. The majority of people in the UK wanted Brexit in 2016. We had to suck it up and deal with it. So no, I'm not having this. If the biggest party in Stormont becomes Sinn Féin, that tells you that people within Northern Ireland are not so fussed about the Union. This is essentially the position still taken by the EU, Ireland and parts of the US establishment, which have concluded that Johnson's government, if it wished, could back down its demands and reach a compromise with the EU along the broadly agreed upon with the EU broadly along the lines agreed upon, and Northern Ireland Unionists would in the end have to swallow it, which ironically is actually happening right now, because the UK have caved on their ECJ stuff. Britain drops demand that the role of European Court of Justice be removed from the Northern Ireland Protocol. So Britain has already done that. They are making progress on medicines. Again, the EU are willing to change the rules a bit around that. There will be potentially more changes around agri-foods. So again, this point he's making here, it's already happening. within the space of weeks. A more nuanced argument made by some nationalists I spoke with, as well as opponents of Brexit in the UK, the EU and beyond, is that the tension we are now seeing is an inevitable consequence of Brexit, which is absolutely 100% true. Matthew O'Toole, an Irish nationalist member of the Northern Ireland Assembly who supports the protocol, told me that the only long-term solution is a stabilised relationship between Britain and the EU, which, in his view, London is deliberately avoiding with its antagonistic stance towards the EU and its member states, principally France, on a number of issues, which, again, this person here, Matthew O'Toole, is 100% correct. The UK is looking for a boogeyman, is trying to force the EU to become that by constantly antagonising it. This analysis is clearly true insofar as Northern Ireland's future does rely on a stable relationship between the UK and EU, but it implicitly assumes that the tension is all the fault of Johnson, which, bro, like, why are you trying to both sides this? Why are you trying to both sides this? It is. Where were these massive problems before Brexit? Where? You know, there were tensions in Northern Ireland, there were issues, but that's mainly down to poverty and the fact that the UK refuses to fund Northern Ireland properly. You know, especially if you got to imagine, if you're a person living in Northern Ireland, right? If you're a so-called proud unionist and you hate Ireland and you want, Northern Ireland to stay a part of GB, you got to look at, a lot of the wealth and things building in Ireland and thinking, why aren't we allowed to live like that? Why can't we live rich like that? I'm not saying that people in Northern Ireland live in absolute poverty, but compared to Ireland, it's not great. Both the UK, here we go. This is the bit I found most egregious in this article. And right now it is far from resolved. Northern Ireland today is a rot in the heart of the Western Alliance, which is being left untreated. Bro, this is not how you talk about nation states. This is not how you talk about people living within nation states. A rot in the heart of the Western Alliance that is being left untreated. A, it's not a rot, and B, it is being looked at. They are looking at the situation now. They are trying to figure out ways to resolve issues around the Northern Ireland Protocol. But what needs to happen is the Iceman needs to thaw a bit, and he needs to drop a lot of the demands he's making, because he said in 2019 the Northern Ireland Protocol is fine. They ran an election on it and they won it. So they can't turn around now and say the Northern Ireland Protocol is a massive problem. Why? Because they only said less than 2 years ago, or just over 2 years ago, it's great. So how can you square the circle? You can't. What a joke. Both the UK and the EU believe they have learned lessons from the past few years of Brexit negotiations. Clearly one side has. But in reality, both are repeating mistakes. Like, bro, my guy, stop both siding this, please. That led to this situation. Imposing deadlines. Again, the EU hasn't really imposed deadlines. The UK has. First they said they need concessions by October. Then they said November. Now they're saying December. Now they're saying Christmas. Then they're saying into the New Year. Marking red lines, that's what the UK did with the ECJ demands. Threatening maximalist retaliation. The EU have done that a bit, but the UK have done that the most. I mean, realistically, this is a dig at the EU, maximum retaliation, because you can only retaliate against something when someone else has made the first move. So the EU said, look, we could get rid of parts of the TCA. And then you're saying, oh, it's the EU's fault because they're, saying that if you do this, we'll do this. Like, bro, it's like if I punched you in the face, you're saying, oh, I'm going to hit you back. And I'm like, no, you're the problem now. This guy's a joker. The worst thing is someone actually shared this article on Twitter and said it was great. I've read through it, and I'm like, no, it's not great. It's pretty bad. The conclusion London has drawn up is that the only way to get the EU to move is to ramp up the pressure, which, again, unfortunately, that is kind of the lessons learned from this year. The lesson is you have to be tough, said one UK official close to Johnson, speaking on the condition of anonymity, of course, because these men are cowards, to candidly discuss the negotiations. In return, the EU has decided it cannot afford to give the impression of weakness over Northern Ireland, partly in case that encourages further moves against the bloc's sovereignty from within the EU itself, which is true. If the EU keep looking like they're a soft touch, the UK are going to keep trying to play hardball because they see that as the only way to get concessions out of the EU. Especially given ongoing disputes with Poland and Hungary about the extent of EU power over member states. Well, Poland and Hungary are trying to do some whack stuff, so of course the EU is going to have to step in there and do something, or other EU members would have to step in and do something. Yeah, according to those in number 10, this has only had the equal and opposite effect in Britain, confirming that we need to be independent of such calculations in Brussels, and so the merry-go-round continues. I mean, again, that's a dumb point. The UK have thought, if we play hardball, we'll get concessions, which they did to an extent. Now they're realising playing hardball doesn't work anymore, so their conclusion is, okay, we need to go even harder than we did before, so the EU gives us more concessions, and the EU have said, there's no more concessions, chief. you're going to get some stuff on medicines, you're going to get some stuff on agri-foods, you mentioned the ECJ, and no, we're done. The truth is that the EU simply does not trust Johnson. I mean, does that surprise anyone? No one should trust Boris Johnson. The man in the mirror, when Johnson looks in the mirror, should not trust Boris Johnson. And that for this, Johnson must take some of the blame. No, he should take all of the blame because he's a massive liar. The dude can't tell you if he's had a Christmas party or not last year whilst London was in a Tier 2 and Tier 3 lockdown. In London, though, Johnson's most senior advisors are deeply frustrated that the EU does not seem to understand the scale of the crisis potentially coming unless a consensus can be reached over how to manage the border. Again, I think the EU are 100% aware of the situation that's coming if the UK keep triggering Northern Irish Unionists. Northern Ireland's Unionists. So again, he's trying to argue the EU are ignorant on this. How can the EU be ignorant on this when they have actual experts who lived through the Troubles within the EU? Ireland can tell them all they need to know about the Troubles. Like, it's a joke. From number 10's perspective, Britain has taken a major political hit to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland. No, we didn't. Britain took a major political hit so they could get Brexit across the line. That's why that happened. Mate, honestly. As a result, it needs far more help to limit the scale of the internal border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. Well, if they wanted that, they could have done that during negotiations. But they didn't, did they? Too often, officials close to Johnson feel the situation is dismissed by the EU. Again, it's not, considering that they have bent over backwards to, try and make changes to the protocol. Stop giving out talking points, you client journalist. Too often, officials close to Johnson feel the situation has been dismissed by the EU as something to be used to score political points. So again, that's not true, is it? We've gone over why that isn't true. When according to those familiar with Johnson's thoughts on the matter, I'm surprised he has thoughts, honestly. He has become the most hardline of all on the issue, seeing it as a question of territorial integrity and internal stability. Then why did you come up with the Northern Ireland Protocol then, bro? The ultimate risk is that either a deal is made that does not go far enough to stop the collapse of power sharing in Northern Ireland. The only people who are going to collapse the power sharing in Northern Ireland are the desperate Unionist Party and the feared spiral of disorder, or a deal cannot be reached and the work of the past 5 years negotiating Britain's withdrawal from the EU is undone. That will be undone by Britain because we're the ones causing the problem. Meaning, in time, the return of a border in Ireland, that's not going to happen because of the Good Friday Agreement, and the Americans will step in and drop tariffs on us pretty aggressively. So again, they've already kept steel tariffs in place. I mean, do you want a trade war with your two biggest trading partners, the Yanks and the EU? Do you really want that? No. So again, they won't put a hard border up in Ireland. Come on, bro, let's be real. Which would present just as much of a challenge to the peace settlement as the political crisis being faced today. After 5 years then, we look back to square one, with each side effectively declaring that no deal is apparently better than a bad deal. This would represent a total failure of politics that would only damage not only Northern Ireland, but Britain and Europe as well. So by extension, the Western Alliance more broadly, a plague on all your houses. I mean, this is probably one of the most painful articles I've read in a while, to be honest. It's published November 17th. Probably should have mentioned at the start, but literally about a month, less than a month, the UK have caved on a lot of the red lines that we imposed, which were causing the problems. So yeah, I don't know what more to say, man. You guys, let me know what you think in the comments about this one. How long's this video been going for? Us a while. It's a long one. Yeah, it's a long one. But this man's a joke. Honestly, he's writing leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, this is a C- essay at best. Let's be real here. I mean, he's trying to both sides an issue which doesn't really blame with both sides, does it? Belongs with really one that have created this problem, and then created a problem and then tried to blame it on another group, and they're going to drag the Yanks in. So anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know if you like these sorts of more kind of, I want to say analytical videos, but I don't know if it's classed as analysis really. These kind of longer piece videos where I break down an op-ed and try and give my thoughts on it. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.